Hi everybody, this is Matt Kilbasa speaking. Just want to give you a quick shout out to the dissection of the sheep's brain. We're going to start off with the interior and exterior, and then going into the interior structures of the brain and have some of the functions that go along with it. Here we have four regions of the brain. We're going to have the frontal, the parietal, the temporal, and the occipital. The frontal is important because it involves cognitive thinking and problem solving, and even storing memory and even language, learning languages. The parietal process is processing information and the senses that we go with the taste, feeling of temperature, and touch. Those are really important key factors there. Next, we'll move into the temporal region. The temporal region is involved with the auditory system and how it's responsible for auditory hearing anyway. Next is going into the occipital region of the brain. The occipital portion, a region, involves the visual cortex, or the visual processing system. That's back there. Moving on into the next descriptive information with or to demonstrate the gyrus and the sulcus. The gyrus is going to be this white matter here, going into the mountain highs or peaks, mountain peaks. And then the sulcus is going to be the valley lows. These are the small crevices that you see here. Next, we're moving on into the longitudinal fissure. The longitudinal fissure is right here at the smack dab in the middle of the brain. This constitutes between the left and the right side of the brain itself. This again helps with the left side. Is more of like the imagination and the creativity and the some of the processing units of that nature. The right side of the brain involves more the logical and the reasoning part of even language learning, that side of the brain as well. Next, we'll move on to the lateral sulcus. The lateral sulcus is right here along the temporal part of the brain, a region of the brain which separates between the temporal and the parietal. Okay, and that's very, very important. This is actually right behind the zygomatic process of the frontal bone, which is going to be placed right about there, give or take. The fissure, of course, is again, it distinguishes right here. It distinguishes between the temporal and the parietal. Okay, moving on into the demonstration of the cerebellum. The cerebellum is right underneath the brain itself right here. It's going to be below the pons, so that the cerebellum is right here. The pons are right here. Now, this function of the cerebellum primarily constitutes between balance and coordination. That's really important. And of course, the pons, its function connects between the lower half of the brain and the upper half of the brain. Okay? Moving on to the medulla oblongata, which is right here, this region right here. This is the lower part of the brain stem. A very important factor, actually, because it helps regulate and even sustain some of the breathing, swallowing, and even heart rate functions that we have every single day. So when we go on a jog, this is going to be the higher or lower heart rate that we tend to want to relax or go higher or low. Okay, moving on to the olfactory bulbs. This is the ventral surface of the brain underneath here. These are the olfactory bulbs here. Okay, the optic nerves are extending from there. These are them right there. 1 and 2, left and right. Okay. Next, we'll move into the optic chiasm. The optic chiasm is going to be the cross section at which they two meet here, and this goes into the left, if not the right side of the brain. Okay, and it goes into the visual cortex, which is the occipital portion of the brain, as discussed earlier. Next, we have the olfactory tract, which is right here. Okay, olfactory tract. The cerebral peduncle, or peduncle. This is going to be actually right along here. These areas right there. Okay, right there and here. Like the right there. Okay, and of course the pituitary gland. You can't quite see the pituitary, but it's going to be right underneath there, but it's going to be right in this general area. Okay, that's going to be your pituitary gland. Moving on into the next chapter, or the next video, with the cranial nerves. Hello again, this is Matt with part 2. Part 2, we're going to be concentrated on the 12 cranial nerves, primarily the 4 of the 12. We're going to start off with the ocular motor cranial nerve 3, which is going to be right here. It's kind of hard to see, but it's going to be right there. Okay. Next is the trochlear, which is cranial nerve number 4, which is right here on this path here. The trigeminal 5 here, running along that curve there. And abducens is going to be cranial nerve 6. That's really hard to see here, but if I can bring it up, that's going to be your cranial nerve 6. Again, that's called the abducens. So ocular motor, trochlear, your trigeminal, and your abducens. This concludes 4 of the 12 cranial nerves. Thank you. Hi everybody, this is Matt Kielbasa speaking. Just want to give you guys a quick update as to this is part 3 of a beautiful cross section of the left side of the brain. I took it from the mid-sagittal region and I cut it right in half, and here we have a beautiful view of just kind of pointing to ourselves the frontal region, the parietal region, the occipital region. We have here the cerebellum. This is going to be starting off with the corpus callosum. Is going to be at the top. Then it comes to the fornix at the bottom. Then we move into the lateral ventricle, which is right here. Then we go into the intermediate mass of the thalamus. The intermediate mass of the thalamus is actually right below it, right here. This is the thalamus area region. Okay. Then we'll go into the cerebral peduncle, which is going to be right here. Okay. That's the cerebral peduncle. Then it goes into, excuse me. Then it goes into the pons. The pons are actually going to be back down here. That's going to be your pons. Then it's the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is very, very key to note here, but it's going to be down here. So we're going to go from the the frontal to the posterior, which is going to be the medulla oblongata right here. Okay? Then it goes into the next one. It's going to be the fourth ventricle. The fourth ventricle is very tricky, but it's going to be right in this section here. Okay? That's going to be your fourth ventricle. Then it goes into the corpora quadramina, which we'll go over in a minute, followed by the cerebrum or the arbor vitae. This is the arbor vitae here. It looks like a tree-like structure. This is called the tree of life, according to anatomy books, okay? That's the arbor vitae. Then it goes into the pineal body. The pineal body is just right there, okay? These are going to be the cross section or the sagittal section of the brain. Next, we'll move into the dorsal deep structures, which will. All right, here we go. I just want to let you guys know that this is going to be the location of the occipital lobes. Underneath that, in the dorsal deep structures, this is of course the midbrain. And of the midbrain, we want to focus on the corpora quadrigemina, which is the left and the right hand. We also have the pineal gland, which is sitting right here, followed by the superior and inferior colliculi. This is the superior colliculi and the inferior colliculi. And this is our dorsal deep structures in the brainstem.